Under fascism, citizens retain the responsibilities of owning property without freedom to act and without any of the advantages of ownership. Under socialism, government officials acquire all the advantages of ownership without any of the responsibilities, since they do not hold title to the property, but merely the right to use it, at least until the next purge. In either case, the government officials hold the economic, political, and legal power of life or death over the citizens. When you have made evil the means of survival, do not expect men to remain good. Do not expect them to stay moral and lose their lives for the purpose of becoming the fodder of the immoral. Do not expect them to produce when production is punished and looting rewarded. Do not ask who is destroying the world. You are. Needless to say, under either system, socialism or fascism, the inequalities of income and standard of living are greater than anything possible under a free economy. And man's position is determined not by his productive ability and achievement, but by political pull and force. Under both systems, sacrifice is invoked as a magic, omnipotent solution in any crisis, and the public good is the altar on which the victims are immolated. When you see that trading is done, not by consent, but by compulsion, when you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, when you see the money is flowing to those who deal not in goods, but in favors, when you see that men get richer by graft and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed. And that's Ayn Rand. And that's Ayn Rand. Well, important observations from the past, which is always prologue. It's like my mantra, past is prologue. We could see the writing of the future on the wall from the past and how it will affect our present. The illusory image of utopia, propagandized by the cultural Marxists, continues to flourish due to multi-generational indoctrination. Those who are aware of this ongoing transformation either do not recognize, understand, or are delusional, like the dumbed-down sufferers of white guilt and the descendants of southern slaves who embrace a system that enslaves them. Like fascism, communism, and socialism, it's good for the oligarchs, political leaders, and corporations, not the people. More than 100 years of history has proven this. Our free enterprise system created America's wealth. Ironically, these good-hearted utopian positive thinkers ignore the fact that communism and socialism led to slavery, purges, and the genocide of more than 100 million people. We're talking about people like Vladimir Lenin, who killed 10 million of his own peasants, people, let the peasants starve. Joseph Stalin, 40 million. Hitler didn't kill really his own, well, he killed Jews. A certain amount of them were his own people. But these are people that we're talking about. Chairman Mao killed 60 million of his own people. Are Americans embracing the oligarch puppet Obama's transformation? Are they aware of this fact? Or do they believe that our generation will be more compassionate and fair? After all, fairness is one of the big issues of these ideologies, is it not? Or worse, do they embrace the realities of history simply as a means to justify the end? If you study the New World Order, communist, illuminist, socialist agenda, as I have for the last 7 years, you would undoubtedly understand this and see how it all has manifested itself and woven into the socio-political and pop culture arenas of American life. It is our reality. We're living in it. Having been educated in the New York City public schools from 1972 to 1985, I myself was conditioned to embrace all of this indoctrinating propaganda. I clearly remember celebrating May Day in the schoolyard at PS 160, the Walt Disney School, in the Bronx, wrapping ribbons around the maypole and being clueless to the communist and pagan ritual significance. I was a no questions asked party line Democrat, as my father was. Yes, like I am certain many people in America, I voted like my father. I laugh when I look back at what a typical sheep I was. Just to show how conditioned to the party, I voted for Michael Dukakis in my first presidential election in 1988. Then I voted for the Clinton crime family twice. Damn, I even defended him from his detractors with little research into the despicable, sleazy, murderous, degenerate Bill Clinton is. Believe it or not, I voted for Al Global Warming Gore in 2000. That's how sick I was. After all, liberalism is a disease. Fortunately, I found the cure, and it's the truth. Obama proved to be yet another liar that I voted for, but this time I took notice of this rock star Madison Avenue Hollywood shine given to this unknown. He said everything I wanted to hear. There was going to be a real president, someone greater than Clinton, who I thought was awesome. After all, the economy was so great under Clinton's watch. Little did I know he was a key culprit in the designed housing and economic collapse in 2008 with the deregulation of the banks by the repeal of Glass-Steagall and the creation of the American Prosperity Act that allowed low-income and minorities, almost anyone, to get a mortgage for a house they ultimately couldn't afford. Banks were actually pressured to approve loans by the Clinton administration, and this is how they work. Each administration does its little part for the New World Order, moves it a litit forward, and now, it was up to it was Bush, and then now it was up to Obama to continue the transformation. And yes, up to this point in time, I was but one of the still many deliberately dumbed down. I was a drone, an obedient servant, completely politically unaware that I was embracing my own servitude. It was around this time in 2009, when the ether wore off on my love affair with Obama, that I began to investigate why the world was changing so radically and so much for the worse. I started to deeply research American history and learned that our money was created out of thin air by a private international banking cartel that charged our government interest on every dollar printed. It was just astounding to me. This led me to read the Constitution and deduce that the Supreme Court, in more than one occasion, has treasonously upheld the Fed's fiat currency takeover of the money system, and currently they've been, again, just unbelievable actions with Obamacare. The Constitution states that money is to be gold and silver, period. That's what America was all about. That's why America flourished above all other countries, because we had a sound money system, and we had, the ability, free enterprise. Just, a good idea, you could take it and run with it and make it happen. No obstacles. No alphabet soup of regulators regulating business. No licensing fees. No insurance costs. No upfront. None of these things that stifle production. That stifle economic growth. That's what we didn't have. See, now we have that. Now you wonder why. How can the economy be so bad? Because they refuse to make it easier for somebody to just have a business. They make everything as difficult as they possibly can, because they want you to be part of this cookie cutter system. Now, up to this time that I was talking about, I discovered that the personal income tax is 100% unconstitutional. And that was just like, that was too much. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And it led me to more research, reading more books, and digging down this rabbit hole, this bottomless pit of evil that I'm still digging down. Now, I came across something at that time known as the New World Order. I didn't know what it was until about this time. I really didn't know what it was. Up until this time, I was completely oblivious to the entire Illuminists, the Illuminati, the indoctrination agenda, the depopulation agenda, the whole thing. And this caused great conflict, since I soon realized that most of what I was taught and believed was in fact a lie. I experienced cognitive dissonance many times during my period of awakening. This should be considered normal once you start to realize what's going on. It's like you're in conflict with yourself, because things that it's very difficult, because if you really want to truly face the world and see what it really is, You've got to face up to some things that you just saw much differently and that weren't true. Unless you wish to live your life in an illusion or a delusion, you have to just take your time to wake up. But you need to know these things, because when things start occurring, you need to know how to react to them. And they are already occurring. They're occurring every day, different events. But they're moving this one world system in, and we have to protect our borders, our language, our culture. We have to protect our infrastructure, our freedom, most important. We can't allow a bunch of international globalists telling us how to live our lives. No way. Can't let our government tell us that either. So we need freedom in this country, real freedom, not communist freedom, not Obama freedom. So I realized almost all of my friends, families, and co-workers had no clue about these things. So I set off to wake them up, of course, with little success. I alienated far more people that I knew than I woke up. I was ostracized due to my insistence on the importance to understand why the world was the way it is. In truth, I reached more strangers, some of whom became close friends. A few old friends caught on in time, but most dismissed my efforts with little or no investigation. They just don't want to wake up. You can't help it, but you try. And you should try. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, you know, if people can't accept these things, or that you turn them off, you got to think about what's wrong with these people, because it's not like I'm advocating some bad stuff here. I'm advocating knowledge of evil intent against humanity that's ongoing, and to explain why the world is the way it is, how history has become this way, and who are the people behind it. I don't know. People want to put their head in the sand, I guess. It's sad. But I still have some good old friends that stuck by me. But pretty much this was like a life-changing thing for me, because I really realized what it is, and I've done enough work to know that this affects not only the life of my son, because this is his generation growing up, but his children. And if we really want to, if you want to understand what's coming down this pike here in this country and in the world, this new world order, maybe you would take this as a warning that you better start doing something yourself to stop it, or to let people know about it, or not participate in it. Global non-compliance, because they're going to make it really sexy, but it's going to be like taking the apple from the tree. I mean, after all, that is really what it is. This whole thing, the Masonic significance to this, they reverse the entire story. And Lucifer is God. So that's their God, their new age. That's the secret. It is what it is. Now, going back to the whole time, I mean, when I was growing up, going to school, I went to high school. I graduated in 1985. The New World Order and the Federal Reserve banking system was not indoctrinated in the schools. It's not taught. Neither was the Constitution. I remember that. There was no civics classes. I remember that. Certainly not in today's Common Core secular humanist schools either, right? So I continued my research. This is like 2010. Started reading a lot of books. I read 3 or 4 Eustace Mullins books: Secrets of the Federal Reserve, Murder by Injection. I read, I can go through the Committee of 300, Coleman. I read Fritz Springmeier's 2 of his books, Be Wise to Serpents, and of course the Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I read, and this is all in that time period. What else was I reading then? I read a lot of books. Then some esoteric books too. I read the Book of the Law, Aleister Crowley. I read Aleister Crowley, 777, and other Kabbalic writings. Manly P. Hall, Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians. Manly P. Hall, Lost Keys of Freemasonry. The Teaching of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. Michael Hoffman's Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. John P. Holdren and Paul Ehrlich's book, Ecoscience. It goes on and on. There's so many books. S.L. McGregor Mathers, Kabbalah Unveiled. The Book of the Concealed Mystery by S.L. McGregor Matthews. It's just a long list of esoteric books. S.L. McGregor's Mathers, Kabbalah Unveiled. I might have said that. John Robeson's Proofs of a Conspiracy, 1798. Carroll Quigley, The American Establishment, From Rhodes to Clevedon. Tragedy and Hope, of course, by Carroll Quigley. I mean, this list is long. You should jot it all down. America's Secret Establishment by Anthony Sutton. Secrets and Lies, A History of CIA Torture and Bioweapons Experiments, Gordon Thomas. Alchemy of Magic, Hal Wilcox. It's just a tremendous body of work that has been put out explaining these secrets of the ages and this agenda to bring in the world government. Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, which is for the Scottish Rite. Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Eustace Mullins, I said that. G. Edward Griffin's Creature from Jekyll Island. There's a whole bunch of books. Ralph Epperson's The New World Order. All these books that I'm talking about. William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. These are all books that I've read and that you should read. It goes into this. Manly P. Hall's Secret of the Ages. The Freemasonry. He has many books, actually, on Freemasonry. The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. Helena Blavatsky. I researched quite a bit into the Freemasonry and the occult and the connections to the Thule Society, the Brotherhood of Death, which is also the Skull and Bones, Brotherhood of Death. Leads me to other books. Skull and Bones by Anthony Sutton. Also, a couple of great books that I also recommend from him would be Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. It ties all these pieces together. I mean, the information is out there. The evidence is out there. It's all on record. Eustace Mullins, Secrets of the Federal Reserve. I keep saying that because it was a big book. The original one, it was in the 50s, and 53, I think it was, and it's outlined their whole thing. It's just gotten so much worse. When you look into the past, you see the future, and all these books were written, a lot of them long ago, especially the esoteric books. It tells you what they're planning. It shows you what their new world order is. They want to evolve humanity to this perfectness. They actually want to become gods, is really what it is, and they believe that that's one of the secrets that Lucifer kept. Excuse me, that God kept, and Lucifer and they're behind Lucifer because he was cast out of heaven by a vindictive God, a sneaky God, a cruel God, who denied Adam and Eve the knowledge that they too can become gods. So that's what they believe. Doesn't matter if you believe it or I believe it or whatever. That's what they believe, and it will affect our lives. It will affect our lives. So I'm in high school, rocking out. I had a band, and in college, and live your life. I'm talking almost, it was 25 years before I woke up. And I look back and I'm like, I saw all of these things happening but didn't notice them the events of the war, the Persian Gulf War, the 9/11 even. I mean, 9/11. I thought, man, oh God, I was totally on the government story. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was totally brainwashed and controlled. I was under the control of the Matrix. I really was. And by the grace of God, I woke up. Like 2008, I really started waking up, and it's just unbelievable. It's changed my life. There's no question about it. It changes how I perceive everything. And that's not a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. People might be a little freaked out if you're going to be open about it. Well, don't be open about it if you don't want any conflict. But if I speak my mind, and I'm trying to wake people up, and I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you don't what you think about me. But I challenge you to prove me wrong. And you can't. That's why I do this. Because ultimately, when I'm long gone, and if they don't throw the truth down the memory hole as they keep trying to do, that these broadcasts and these recordings will mean something, because they will show that we knew what was going on and we knew about this plot. Maybe it'll be brought up in court one day. Who knows? Maybe we will hold these people to the fire and all the evidence that we have and prosecute them. If we can somehow obtain that power, or if we restore our Constitution, I mean, that's really what would end up happening. These people would be tried. The bankers, all of them. They're all in collusion. The politicians. It would be a wonderful thing. I must admit, it's like a fantasy. But it would be a good thing to see. Because the goal of communism and illuminism is to destroy the family, to destroy the family unit. We have to understand these things. There's so much information that's suppressed. The fact that all these ideologies, communism, socialism, fascism, they were all created by the illumined of the Masonic secret societies, such as the Brotherhood of the Snake and the Order of the Quest. The connections to history, historical figures, and secret societies begin to solidify my own understanding at the time. And I started to do a lot of research into these secret societies, the connections to history. And I understood that the Illuminati, the Illumin Ones, descended for thousands of years before Jesuit Adam Weishaupt created the Order of the Illuminati. So this is just it's like a name of what you want to call it, but all of these societies are really one and the same, even though they're called different names, and they all work for the same purpose. They believe it to be the divine purpose, the great work, bringing man to become God. And on May 1st, 1776, the Order of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt's order, was created. Now that's May Day, Communist May Day, celebrated May Day. It's also a pagan ritual, pagan celebration, and it's embraced by the communists. To this day, they still, the pagans celebrate it. The goal of communism or Illuminism is to destroy all religion and moral virtues, as is the goal of the Illuminati. They have the same goal. It's the same playbook. It's the same playbook. The 10 planks of communism are in actuality the 10 planks of Illuminism. They weren't written by Freemason and Satanist Karl Marx, but he and Frederick Engel get the credit. The goal of communism and Illuminism is to destroy the family unit, to destroy God and all religions, to instill immorality, and to make the state God. What we're experiencing today in America illustrates how much has changed in less than 100 years. The New World Order has managed to cast an aesthetic Dionysian spell over humanity. There is no denying that America is fast becoming a Sodom and Gomorrah under the guise of fairness and equality, while being unfair and unequal to those who oppose this insidious ideology. Liberalism is a quintessential example of hypocrisy and authoritarianism in action. Americans must stop focusing on PC issues that are designed to inflame and divide us. Stop focusing on agenda issues like gay marriage and protecting the Confederate flag, and start protesting the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate and their corrupt political partners, who have done more to enslave this country since 1913 than the white Europeans and their African tribal leaders, who often sold their own people into slavery. To make the world safe for democracy, which is nothing more than socialism, the Federal Reserve and the tax-exempt foundations have created wars, famines, depressions, and genocide, while getting fabulously rich in the process and ever widening the gap between rich and poor. America is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic. We are all slaves to these masterful spin doctors and their social control mechanisms. Wake up. Freedom is not a sporting event. It is not the red team versus the blue team. Rather, the red team and blue team reading from the same Saul Alinsky playbook. In his famous tome, Rules for Radical, Alinsky dedicated his book to the first radical, Lucifer. Look it up. You can't make these truths up. Still, too many sheeple can't or are unwilling to figure this out. They don't want to look. Sadly, while Americans stay distracted and divided, demo rats and republic scum get rich, 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 speaking out both sides of their mouths all the while. Meanwhile, the gap between rich and poor continues to widen through both Republican and Democratic regimes, and more laws and treasonous executive actions strip away God-given inalienable rights. Regulatory agencies like the FDA have become the muscle arm against natural remedies and organics in favor of big pharma drugs and Monsanto GMO. Statistics revealing that medical treatment is the number 3 killer in the U.S. is suppressed, as is the fact that more than 120,000 Americans are killed by pharmaceutical drugs every year. More than 450,000 Americans die as a result of properly administered medical treatment. This is above and beyond malpractice. Can you understand this? This is just people that are normally going for a treatment or something or taking something. They die. 500,000 people. The alphabet soup of federal agencies tasked with regulating industries are headed by key executives from the industries they are supposed to be regulating. In a revolving door system that has stifled competition and U.S. economic growth by design. It began with the division of chemistry that was later known as the FDA. The name changed the FDA to conceal the Rockefeller Chemical Industry Alliance, an alliance that continues to this day. The FDA provides legal immunity to the food additives and pharmaceutical industries. Remember, every drug and food additive that has ever been banned by the FDA was first approved by the FDA. The FDA is not alone in its trickery and deceptions. There are literally hundreds of regulatory agencies that keep the powers that be as the status quo. This is why we must end the Department of Education and end the collectivist control of the environmental movement, who, like the other regulatory bodies, is championed, promoted, and controlled from behind the scenes by the very industries they claim to be regulating. Don't harm the desert mouse. Give up your land. Don't collect rainwater. We're going to put you in jail. Do you see what's going on? Don't put a garden in the front of your house. Agenda 21, ladies and gentlemen. Research that. The U.S. communist education system has been developed over more than 60 years to graduate Marxist-Leninists from the Frankfurt School of Thought. These minds are now educating our children and running for political office. There is either freedom or slavery. The blue team and the red team both claim they are working to protect our freedom as it withers away with draconian laws and executive orders. Both sides of the political aisle work directly for the forces that are causing all the division and decay in our society. Their communist slogans emphasize this: change we can believe in, forward, and the transformation of America. We have been force-fed to believe the Federal Reserve helps to stabilize markets and the economy. Bullshit. History has proven this to be another big lie. Like it or not, religious or not, we are all of us, deeply involved in a spiritual battle between the forces of good and evil. Make no mistake about it. And we are destroying ourselves and our good intentions and our warm hearts and our bleeding hearts and our compassion and our fairness. We're destroying ourselves from within. It is time to wake up.
we are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy to get people actually to love their servitude. First of all, to standardize the population, to iron out inconvenient human differences, to create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system. A number of the predictions which were purely fantastic when I made them 30 years ago have come true or seem in process of coming true. That a number of techniques about which I talk seem to be here already, and that there seems to be a general movement in the direction of this kind of ultimate revolution, this method of control by which people can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.